The gendarme returns. What do you need? Yeah, it's hers. She just sort of moved it all in a few months ago.
She said if she's going to make truly radical art, she needs a suitably radical workspace.
And I don't think she could afford rent at an actual studio. Oh, sure. He's definitely interesting, I would say.
Interesting? Isn't that just binoclard for I don't have a real opinion? His companion's eyes widen with interest. He has a cold smile. If this is what the Union man meant by theory combat, you've just scored a decisive blow.
Come on. It's not that I don't have anything to say about Cindy's art. It's more that I'm still working out the details. It's a complex question. You've got to take your time with it.
You flustered the poor boy. Now he's got to say something.
I guess you could call her latest stuff a sort of counter-bourgeoisie calligraphy. She's got a real taste for radical slogans.
It's too bad she hasn't developed the theoretical foundation to do truly radical work.
I think she'll get there, though. She's still looking for a subject equal to her ambitions. The deal? At a fundamental level, I guess you could call it the shattered bones of a dream crushed by capital.
That's really good, Steban. You should save that for an essay.
Thanks, Uli. When the idea is sound, the words just sort of flow.
Yes, now keep developing the idea.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Not as good as Steban's original idea, though.
The deal?
That's really good.
Yes,
That could be. It would explain some of the more ornate detailing. But we're speaking in world historical terms here. What his place represents, not what it merely was.
his friend yawns, evidently bored by literal reality.
Go ahead. The gendarme returns. What do you need?
Remember, where most people go wrong is in thinking they have to hide what they don't know. Another thing, these young men have the most exquisitely tuned insecurity receptors you've ever witnessed. Now, chin up. You've got this.
Oh, you want to start now? Sure, we can manage that.
You've caught him off balance. The momentum is already in your favor.
Go ahead and take a seat. Since we haven't had time to prepare an exhaustive questionnaire, I think we can keep this interview more freeform. Why don't you tell us a bit about the books you're interested in, and we'll just see where the conversation goes. Okay, we'll bite. What sort of stories are we talking about?
How about a tale of adventure, intrigue, and daring-do?
Oh, we're getting into the psychiatric pathologies of life under capital. Let's see where this goes.
Yes, I'm rather curious myself.
You've got them. They're starting to loosen up. You're relaxed and in control. You deftly weave every piece of the story together.
I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like to wake up with no concept of what money is.
If you encountered it in a novel, you'd say it sounded like a plot contrivance or like a fantasy.
Perhaps, but it's a fantasy that pays for things, like your hostel bill.
No, it's just like Mazovrot, The freeman of the future will be he who awakens in perfect ignorance of capital.
Wait, Steban, are you saying the gendarme is some kind of future communist?
Another quarter of an hour disappears. The conversation bounces back and forth. Whatever their pretensions, it's clear these two have been craving something real. Now you can sense things starting to slow down. Time to wrap this tale up.
But that would imply that whenever you unpeel time, you leave behind some kind of doppelganger in now time.
Good God, have we really been talking about unpeeling time for a quarter hour?
I suppose we'll have to leave it there. But listen, gendarme. We could use someone with your breadth of expertise. With just a little more theoretical background, I think you'll be able to make some real contributions.
Yes, I would say he's got serious potential at least.
And with that, welcome to the most ideologically advanced materialist reading group in Martinez. Here's your first assignment. It's an overview of inframaterialist theory. A little basic, as you'll see, but one has to start somewhere. Come back when you're done. We'll be here pretty much every night after 10 p.m. Do be sure to take your time with the reading. We'll be eager to hear your thoughts.
The cover of this pocket-sized volume features a swirl of orange, yellow, and green. The title, A Brief Look at Inframaterialism, is set in an authoritative yet approachable serif font. What an interesting color palette. It's vibrant, yet somehow leaves you ever so slightly nauseated. On the inside jacket flap, you find a brief summary. What is inframaterialism? A highly theoretical branch of Masovian communism? A collection of mystical ramblings by a discredited revolutionary? Or possibly both? This brief look, TM, introduces readers to one of this century's most fascinating and misunderstood theories in a concise, jargon-free manner. The back of the book contains 4 or 5 pages of primary and secondary sources, but you'd need access to a university library to find most of them. In other words, this guide is the only source you're likely to find. You turn to the table of contents. The guide itself is divided into several sections with seemingly esoteric titles like Effects of Plasm on Root Vegetables and Mental Projection and Transference. There's also a brief introduction about the life of Ignas Nielsen. Known to his numerous admirers as the evangelist of the revolution, and to his even more numerous enemies as the apocalyptic Shrike, Ignas Nielsen remains one of the most controversial and fascinating figures to emerge in the years of the anti-centennial revolution, second only to Karamazov himself. During his unparalleled life, he helped guide a revolution in one country and found a new state in another. Along the way, he committed some of the most notorious war crimes in an era famed for its atrocities. And yet, his most fascinating contribution to history may be the most overlooked. His theory of ideological plasm, from which his followers and successors developed the school of communism known as inframaterialism. If you're like most people, you probably believe that your thoughts reside in your brain, right? That's not right at all. Thoughts don't exist in the brain. They float through the air. Your brain is but a fish swimming through them. Very interesting, and not so far removed from Ignas Nielsen's own theories. As Mazov's devoted comrade and leading theoretician, Nielsen was responsible for developing much of the intellectual foundation of communism. But his interests and speculations were famously wide-ranging. During his final years in exile, he produced, among other things, an early guide to home brewing, instructions for raising revolutionary children, plans for a universal pictographic language, and a detailed materialist critique of Dolores Day's chess strategy. A true man of ideas, equal to any of the great DeLorean polymaths. But one subject he returned to time and time again was the fundamental relationship between thoughts and matter. We may yet discover, he wrote in his notebooks, that under certain exceptional circumstances, the proletariat's embrace of historical materialism may be so fervent that their beliefs take form in the world of matter as a kind of revolutionary plasm. Certainly, in essence, Nielsen is arguing that thoughts don't just reside inside the brain, they radiate outward from it. According to this idea, the brain is an ideological transponder, constantly emitting waves of highly politicized energy, which Nielsen called plasm. Stay with us a moment longer. What's more, Nielsen speculated that this plasm, when it becomes powerful enough, might begin to influence the material reality surrounding it. Hence the name, inframaterialism. Unfortunately, Nielsen passed away before he was able to develop these initial ideas into a full-fledged theory. That work was left to subsequent generations of communist theorists. Building on Nielsen's basic insight, these theorists reached a startling conclusion that a sufficiently revolutionary state might begin to exhibit certain extra-physical effects based on the amount of plasm generated by its citizens. Correct, though certain particulars of the theory are commonly attributed to Nielsen himself, the evidentiary basis of those attributions has always been a point of contention between inframaterialists and their critics. The actual theory is highly technical, but for the purposes of this brief look, TM, that's a fine working definition of the concept. That's because this is absolute idiocy, not even worth engaging with. No. There's something here. You can feel it. Inframaterialists divide the extra-physical effects of the revolutionary state by the level of plasm required to achieve them. At the lowest, or first level, revolutionary plasm is believed to stimulate or invigorate matter without altering its essential properties. Precisely, though plasm does more than increase vegetable yields, it may also influence the physiology of revolutionaries themselves. It's also been postulated that plasm may account for the remarkably full and manly facial hair observed on many communist males. Of course, inframaterialists argue that revolutionary plasm may stimulate human physiology in other ways as well. In fact, reports from the revolutionary period claim that the most radically devoted communards were able to engage in vigorous intercourse for up to 8 hours at a time. 8 hours? There's no way. Your equipment would be mashed to jelly. No wonder the communards couldn't shoot straight. They were too shagged out. Hyperproductive vegetables and ultra-horny communards are fine, but this theory hasn't quite gotten strange enough for you. And on that note, you feel like you've gotten the general idea of inframaterialism, enough to carry on a basic conversation at least. But if you'd like to go even deeper into some of the more speculative aspects of the theory, you could always read further. Of course you want to go deeper. What else are you here for? The book fits quite snugly into your palm. It would also fit comfortably into a jacket pocket. You flip forward a few pages until you come upon a chapter titled Mental Projection and Transference. When a community has achieved a sufficiently high degree of revolutionary fervor, inframaterialists believe that second-level effects may be observed. At this second level, certain hyper-revolutionary individuals may even develop the ability to extend their thoughts into material space and vice versa. According to inframaterialist theory, yes. Under suitably revolutionary conditions, that is. It's become something of a folk legend that during their final meeting, Nielsen and Mazov didn't speak a single word, preferring to sit in silence with their chamomile tea, reading one another's thoughts. One of the minor tragedies of the late revolutionary period is that few reliable accounts survive. Much of what we know of the communards' activities during this period come from memoirs and second-hand accounts, some only written down decades after the fact, and of dubious authenticity. Because plasm has never been directly observed, the exact mechanism behind these effects remains entirely speculative. In other words, there's no evidence that any of this mind-reading stuff is real. Why are you getting hung up on mechanisms? Open your mind's aperture just a little wider. You're so close to true understanding. Most inframaterialists would argue that the inability of skeptics to detect plasm is simply evidence of their own insufficient revolutionary enthusiasm. There you have it, a perfectly unfalsifiable loop. The theory is impossible to disprove on its own grounds. Meaning, it's hardly a theory at all. This should be more than enough for a stimulating discussion. That said, if you're still yearning for more, you must. Everyone knows books save their best parts for the end. You breeze through the next several sections until you arrive at the final chapter, titled A Communism Above Reality. When a society's revolutionary fervor reaches the third and highest level, inframaterialist theoreticians have postulated that the laws of physics cease to be laws. More like suggestions, according to some of the SRV's leading inframaterialists. Of course, it's impossible to say what exactly happens under these conditions. No known society has ever achieved the levels of revolutionary enthusiasm the theory seems to require. Some inframaterialists have even argued that it might require more plasm than humanity alone may be capable of producing. In the SRV, there have been attempts to organize certain species of aquatic mammals as well as a few of the higher corvids. But as of this writing, only human beings have demonstrated the intellectual capacity for revolutionary communism. There are numerous stories from Samara involving bandits or fascist mercenaries being levitated by farmers from the most ideologically advanced communes. Of course, few of these incidents have ever been rigorously investigated or substantiated. Among known attempts to channel third-level capabilities, the most well-documented is the curious case of coalition warship Debutante. It concerns an interesting series of events that took place during the invasion of Revachol. As coalition forces made landfall, a cadre of Nielsen's most fervent acolytes attempted to compress a coalition aerostatic with their collective will. According to communard law, these acolytes positioned themselves at the top of a redoubt just over the bay of Revachol. From that vantage, they proceeded to visualize pinching coalition warship Debutante between their fingers, a gesture believed to assist in the extra-physical materialization of their thoughts. The communards were notoriously under-equipped against the much better-funded coalition. In any event, it's doubtful even ceramic armor would have altered the outcome. The acolytes, along with the redoubt, were vaporized in an artillery strike before the process could be completed. It's been said, though, that in the weeks following the battle, the captain of the Debutante noted an increase in incidents of crewmen striking their heads on unexpectedly low bulkheads. Of course, colorful anecdotes only scratch the surface of what inframaterialists believe may be possible in a truly third-level society. Some have theorized that such a society would be fundamentally unrecognizable, lacking many of the institutions we typically take for granted in advanced societies, including organized governments, financial institutions, and law enforcement. Did that book just say there's no place for you in this future? Others have argued that people living under third-level conditions will be immune to such infirmities as hunger, disease, and mental illness. In some of his later writings, Nielsen himself speculated about the potential for an extra-physical architecture that disregards the laws of bourgeois physics and instead relies on the revolutionary faith of the people for structural integrity. Precisely, Nielsen observed that the financial system operates on the same principle of faith. So why not an architectural system? On the following page, you come across a few black and white reproductions from Nielsen's own notebooks. One sketch depicts a government ministry shaped like a great inverted pyramid. A hectare in width at the top, balanced atop foundations the size of common apartments. Another depicts a leaning tower wrapped in a dramatic helix. The caption beneath it reads, "The Tower of History." Something about that tower looks awfully familiar. Could it be that's what the students were trying to recreate with the matchboxes? In the corner of one of the reproduced notebook pages, you can make out the following words, written in Nielsen's distinctive slashing script. A state that has lost the faith of its people has forfeited the right to exist. There is no more. You've reached the outer theoretical limits of communism, and in less than 200 pages. If you'd like to read further, may we recommend a brief look at Occidental architecture?
You're back. Yes, let's get right to it.
His companion leans forward, ready to jump in. They're impressed that you dove right into the most advanced parts of the theory. Half an hour evaporates and the conversation is still wending its way toward new and unexpected places. A cool breeze coming off the bay wraps itself around the Capeside apartments in a nearly forgotten part of that glorified construction site, surrounded by rusted pieces of scaffolding and walls of faded tarpaulin. A detective of the RCM debates the intricacies of an abstruse theory with a pair of university students.
But if it's true that this individual possesses so much capital that light literally bends around him, then that must mean... Or it suggests that capital, in sufficient quantities, must exhibit its own plasm-like qualities.
In Innocence of Capital, Puncher and Wortman argues that communists must possess as little capital as possible in order to keep their thinking undiluted by its influence.
Again, he was just a regular high-net-worth individual. There was nothing extra-physical about him.
Now the breeze has subsided. All is still except for the last bits of steam rising from the coffee pot.
Well, on that note, I think we can call it an evening.
No, wait. Can this really be the end? You feel like you've just gotten to the real stuff.
Yes. One of our better discussions lately, on the whole.
What do you mean, is that it? You've done the reading, we talked about it. What more do you expect from a reading group? Well, you could always ask, I guess.
We probably won't get a better chance. Honestly.
But it's getting late, so maybe pick the most important question.
Detective, how should I know what questions you have about communism?
Come on. We have things to do in the morning.
All right, here we go. We're devoting all your available brain cells to coming up with a question about communism. Scratch that. To coming up with the question about communism. The alpha and omega of communism questions. And that question is... The young man gives you a slightly confused look, as though he's sure you asked something else and he simply misheard. Somehow, it sounded even worse out loud.
He wants to know if women are bourgeois, Esteban.
Yes, I heard him. Give me a moment. What makes you ask that question above any other? Ah, gendarme. Your problem isn't ideological, it's personal. You ask that question because you're still under the influence of ideology. That's natural. You're like a fish that's only now discovering that her whole life has been dictated by the movements of sea currents. That's what ideology is. It's like there are these invisible forces everywhere, pushing and tugging you this way and that, and you don't even know they're there. Of course it's possible. Just extremely difficult. You practically have to be a world historical individual to do it. Do you know the story of Dobrova and Abba Denais? The so-called revolutionary lovers. The dual commissars of revolution in Insulinda. Yulia Dobrova came from Grad. Jean Abba Denais was born in Revachol. She was brilliant, charismatic, a revolutionary comet. He was her partner and stabilizer, the planet who kept her in orbit.
What became of them, though? There seems to be a blank paragraph in the history books.
It's from them we get the notion of dual leadership, the décomptage, Revachol's truly great contribution to revolutionary thought. I believe it even persists in some form in the RCM, even to this day.
I had no idea its origins went all the way back to the revolution itself. But it makes sense, in a way.
They died on their own terms, like real revolutionaries. There's a lot to say for that. There's more to it than that. People still make their own choices. It's a matter of being aware of what's influencing them. Yes, that's the question you should be asking yourself.
His companion nods, but offers no further solace. The young man nods, but says nothing. He appears to be distracted by something. He's wrestling with some question of his own. He's lost in his own thoughts. You wonder what silt you've stirred in the bottom of his soul. Of course, the matchboxes. You'd very nearly forgotten to ask about them. Now may be your last chance.
So you really did read all the way to the end. Yeah, Uli and I were trying to see whether there was enough plasm between the two of us to hold up a few matchboxes.
Saying it out loud makes him realize how foolish it sounds.
It was just a little informal experiment. No reason to take it too seriously.
The young man looks at you a moment, then at his companion.
What could it hurt? All right, let's give it another go.
You know what? I'll sit this one out. I don't think you want my skeptical materialism interfering.
Before long, a modest tower begins to rise from the pile of matchboxes. You place every box with the utmost delicacy and precision.
Easy, Uli.
It's holding. It's holding.
For the moment. The higher the tower goes, the quieter the room seems to become. Aside from the occasional comment, the three of you are completely absorbed by the task.
All right, you go next, Stepan.
The young man pushes back his shirt sleeves, revealing the pale flesh of his forearms.
Is it? It's holding. It's holding.
Yes, this is the closest we've ever gotten.
It's almost exactly as Nielsen's sketch imagined, a physical manifestation of the dialectical spiral of history.
All right, gendarme. Your turn.
You've got this. Theories aside, they're only matchboxes. Even the lieutenant is watching intently now.
It's... My God. Is it really holding?
It is. It is.
There, in the middle of the floor, the winding spire quivers with an improbable energy.
This is impossible, right? There's no way it's really staying up like that.
But it is. It is. For a long moment, no one says a word. Even the lieutenant is transfixed. A low-pressure system is gathering itself over the bay. It's begun to tug violently at the tarpaulins.
And there it goes. No, it was exactly what's supposed to happen. We should treat it that way.
We should probably clean up.
Well, I think we're probably finished here, Detective.
Wait a minute, if you don't mind. We wanted to get your opinion on something. A few little changes we've been thinking about. Nothing too major, I think. We were talking potentially about relaxing some parts of our admissions process.
I thought the cloak and dagger routine made us seem more appealing.
I thought so too, but perhaps we overdid it, just a little. There was another thing. We were also debating putting up some posters around town.
Though some of us maintain that advertising is an unacceptably bourgeois tactic.
That's what makes it so beautiful. The irony is unbeatable. As a noted art cop, you definitely have an opinion on this.
Oh, I like that. We're dismantling the structures of capital with our own tools.
It does sound pretty cool when you describe it like that.
Plus, I've got the perfect place in mind. Put some more coffee on, Uli. We've got a long night ahead of us. We should probably get Cindy in here too. Oh, and gendarme. One last thing. I've been thinking about what you asked before, about women, you know? Not that it's any of my business, but it sounds like this question is really tearing you up inside.
It is tearing you up. It's like there's a tiny, hateful beast shredding your very soul.
So, good luck with that, I guess. The gendarme returns. What do you need?
Hello again, officers. Have you come to admire my mural?
Hi again, gendarme. Bye-bye, gendarme.
Hey, was there something you needed? Another thing. Great. I love those. Yes?
The bed is still cold from the broken window, and not too inviting. But it's yours. You've earned it. The unchanged linens are only getting greasier and greasier every time you crawl among them. Like some wounded animal, you close your eyes and ask for sleep. Just some hours of regular sleep, please.
It's easier this time. Drifting off, your head has found a comfortable indent in the pillow. Your legs and your torso feel like lead weights sinking to the bottom of the sea, until they're suddenly light.
This respite, you've earned it, brother. Bask in the darkness. Let it swallow you up and swivel you around while you forget everything you've managed to remember. No, this is the one before that. We'll just keep cycling it for you if you don't mind. As long as we can. Spin it like black yarn.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
You're welcome, Harry boy. You earned it.
After centuries of darkness, the alarm rings. But what's this? You actually feel rested. There's no time to cuddle with your pillow, however, or as much as shiver from the cold. The world awaits.
Special thanks to my patrons, Justin Wood, Hobbs, Koopy Vegeta, Gunrunner, Water and Bat. You can join my patrons at patreon.com/HoldenGatsby, follow me on Twitter at HoldenGatsby, and follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/HoldenGatsby. Don't forget to subscribe to both of my channels. Thanks for watching, bye.